The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev, are you able to use your 1,170 pounds gym shoes that you bought, that you used twice before you got gout again? Are you back? Are you back in them?
I'm back in them. They're a bit tight.
It's nice. Do you know, does it feel like lockdown is over, or does it feel like a continuation of it?
It's really weird, isn't it? It's interesting. I went past one of the pubs yesterday. Like I said a while ago, I think a couple of weeks ago, that all the pubs in Malmesbury, there's only one that does food.
Scotch eggs, obviously. Scotch eggs.
Yeah, that's right. They're all open. they must all be giving away free Scotch eggs.
Free Scotch egg with every bitter. Yeah, I don't know whether it feels like we've come out or gone back into one. Really, I can't work this out. But the good news is, Kev, we're going to all be punched in the arm soon by Boris with his miracle drug cure.
Yeah.
As long as he can keep saying us, well, you have another problem now. We can't possibly get it out now.
The FujiCast.
Whenever we have a bit of good news, it seems, in this country, we have to caveat it with, but remember, it's not going to happen for a long time. Get back in your box, behave yourself. That's what it feels like a little bit to me.
Yeah. The virus will go away once Brexit's failed anyway.
Welcome to EOR Central. You and your questions on FujiCast today from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast private Facebook group, which Kev seems to be in charge of now, when it comes to questions being read out anyway, which you're very welcome to become a part of at click@fujicast.co.uk if you send your emails in, but the private Facebook group otherwise. If you are not a Fujifilm shooter, do not worry. It's a big community, and whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very welcome. Today, Kev, you've been talking to Pete Reed, haven't you?
I have.
Tell us about Pete.
No, Pete's a living legend, isn't he?
He is.
An triple Olympic gold medalist. Very good photographer, friend of mine, friends of a lot of people. And you'll see things of life's changed for him quite substantially. But you'll see all of that in the interview. Yeah,
it's great, isn't it, when somebody sort of starts out life in one way and then becomes a terrifically amazing photographer. That reminds me of Brian Adams, who I wrote to actually, Kev, to request an interview for the FujiCast. And I also,
doesn't he owe you money?
Yeah, well, I did. I thought, well, look, he must get a load of emails a day. So and my opening gambit will be, "Oi, Brian, you owe me 20 quid." So Brian's office did in fact get back to us. Mm-hmm. They don't really have the same humour as I thought they might. Yeah. Apparently,
did you tell them I spent 300 quid on one of his books?
Well, I should have told them that as well. I might write back with a follow-up. Oh, and by the way, Kev spent 300 quid on one of your books.
Yeah, and if you don't come on for an interview, we'll say it's rubbish.
I'm not quite sure he'll care.
We've already done that book anyway, and it's not rubbish.
No, it's not rubbish. It was a great book, but he still owes me 20 quid. And we're talking to the books. What's your book of the week this week?
Book of the week this week is the classic Koudelka Gypsies.
Yeah, we've done a few Koudelka books, haven't we?
We have done one, I think, in the past, but this is one. This is a new edition for me. So,
right.
We'll talk about that.
One of our faves.
Gypsies. I'm not sure you're allowed to call it, say gypsies anymore, are you?
Anyway. Yeah, I don't think that's the politically correct phrase now, is it?
No, but this is from 1975, okay. So
right,
we should talk.
Questions. Shall we start with the bump to front, which isn't really a question, it's more of a comment, but then you can go for a question. Got one here from Joey Campagna. Kev, just picked up the black and white presets via your Black Friday special. Were you doing Black Friday specials? You were, weren't you?
Not really. I saw that email come in and I thought, I didn't know I was doing a Black Friday special. But what I did do is I gave a discount code on one of my YouTube videos. So I think, and that happened to be on Black Friday, so I think that was it.
Well, there we go. I have to say, says Joey, wow, if I'm being honest, I've always been a bit too proud to pay for presets. I'm a photographer, I can do it myself, that sort of thing. And I enjoy the Fujifilm simulation so much, it just seemed a bit unnecessary. But Kev, I like this, in brackets, and Neil, of course, have done so much for me this year. My constant companions on the bike ride to my office and studio, keeping the artist's spirit buzzing while so much has ground to a halt, that when I saw the sale, I thought, well, I'll spend the 50 quid, thank you very much. But these are so much more than presets. They mix and match looks so you can combine and layer on top of one another for countless variations. So much fun. Really glad I picked them up. There we go, from Joe.
Good.
He said,
they've done remarkably well. I'm very pleased.
Yeah, well, you worked blooming hard on them, to be fair. It wasn't just like you slid a few sliders around. You did it properly, didn't you?
I did. And actually, I get a lot of questions like, when will you do them for Capture One? And unfortunately, Capture One just doesn't support the profiling, the lookup table stuff that Lightroom does. So it's not an easy thing. Although Capture One is coming out with a new version soon, so maybe they will. There
was a footnote at the end here. And Neil, if there's anything you're offering as well, please let us know. Well, I do actually have. Hold on.
You'll do your foot rub for a $5.
Yeah. I have a 35mm here that needs a Fuji one that's been here for ages. Somebody left it here once. Never picked it up.
Hysterical.
You can have it for a tenner. And the other one was from Steve Pereira. Bump to the front here. Hi, guys. Enjoying the podcast. Quick question, hopefully. It is a question, actually. I'm using the X100V as my main carry round. I'm really enjoying using the custom settings to quickly adapt the camera to whatever picture I'm trying to take. Landscape, portrait, action, etc. What I've noticed, though, is the customization doesn't let me identify settings like perspective, metering, self-timer, single or multi-frame. If I make one change, like moving to square and one-to-one format in monochrome, then all my custom settings, they switch to it as well. Even if I save a change and update the specific custom mode, it still affects all of the different settings. Am I doing something wrong? From Steve.
No, that's how it works. Yeah, the custom settings will only store certain things, mostly the stuff that affects the JPEGs. So other stuff, it will kind of change accordingly. You'll need to set those manually. So
if it goes one-to-one, then the whole thing, it's a universal thing then?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. It doesn't store things like file size and all that kind of stuff is independent.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Your question, Kev.
Okay, so I'm digging into the Facebook group, the very, very lovely and the ever big growing, all kinds of big growing large things, the many words big I can throw into that sentence.
Are you filling for time while you're...
Thread.
Okay. It has grown, actually. How many members are there now? 10,870 or something?
Oh, I don't know about members. Hang on, let me have a quick look. That's a very good point.
Stand by.
1,650 members.
Amazing.
So the group is growing nicely. Thank you very much for everybody that is in there. Of course, you don't need to be in the Facebook group to leave a question. No. You can do that in the normal manner. But the questions are growing. Yeah, we got loads. So my original plan last week, I started from the top and worked my way down. But then I thought, hang on, by the time we keep doing that, the ones at the bottom, it's going to be months and months and months before we get there. So I'm just going to do it totally randomly.
Are you randomizing?
I'm randomizing, yeah. 8. This is from Keith Martin. I don't shoot many weddings, mainly events, boxing, live music, etc. It's been a while and frankly, I'm feeling rusty and jaded. However, I have just landed the job next spring. With vaccines in the pipeline, we could see stuff start to happen more regularly. What are you going to do to ensure that you get out match fit from the start and don't end up using the first gigs to get back up to speed?
Right. Mm. Does he mean match fit as in physically fit?
I guess so, and also maybe visually fit.
Yeah.
Good question, that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been using my cameras. I don't feel I need to do anything to familiarise myself back into the game in terms of, well, technically anyway. Been doing a little bit of filming. I've been making pictures more often now, doing the photo walks for the Friday editions of Photography Daily podcast, so that's helped, I think. And I do think, Kev, that once that first shutter's pressed at an event, personally, I think I'll be back in the game. And we're going for a family walk since we can meet parents-in-law outside. So I'll probably make a photo story of that tomorrow. Those kind of things. So I feel fairly up to speed with that. I mean, physically. Well, yeah. Physically, I did. In March and April, I made the grand statement that can't do anything else. This is the time to get that body back into sort of into the fit regime. Well, the fit regime was due to start. It never did, Kev. It never really started. We got hot summer, and frankly, at the end of a day, when you'd sort of sat here handling cancellations, he wanted to go and sit out on the bench and have a beer.
At the end of the day, at the end of breakfast.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, Neil. Me and you, we're just basically fat, middle-aged, lazy men.
Like someone I know.
Don't be rude.
It's not all about you.
You've got to change that.
I know. But you're still in charge for the moment.
No, I had similar ambitions about fitness, and actually I was doing really well. I was hitting the gym between the lockdowns.
You were.
Was going okay, and then my foot got bad again, and then anyway. But I did go to the gym yesterday, and I'm feeling relatively confident I can carry on again now.
Feeling good. Yeah, I mean, but what about equipment wise? Do you need to do anything? Do you need to add anything? Are you happy?
I need
Are you
to
ready?
find my memory cards.
Right. Oh, really?
Because I don't know where they are. I in fact, I've got 2 weddings coming up in the next couple of weeks, funny enough. So I need to desperately find my memory cards or buy some new ones.
Yeah.
So I need to figure that out. But yeah, photography wise, I don't think I'll need to. I don't know. The things that are going to freak me out. So I've got a wedding on Saturday, in fact, just a 2-hour one in that there London, all masked up and various things like that.
In fact, I'm there the day after in that there London.
Yeah, and
I'll see you there.
Originally I was due to be in Scotland on a big 2-day wedding. This was going to be a big old wedding for me up in Scotland, but now I've got a 2-hour wedding in West London instead. But I will, I think for me it will be things like remembering to wear a belt. Now that seems very peculiar, but the amount of times I've gone to a wedding and forgotten to put a belt on,
really?
And then I have nowhere to put my memory card holder and my little thing that I use to hold my little X100.
Now this is a very real consideration because I'm the same, but because I put the special hook over the belt. If I don't have my belt, then I don't know what to do with the second camera because it doesn't have a strap. It has just the little thing underneath that holds it onto the belt.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a belt, a proper belt around your waist belt in my camera bag, a spare one. But that's from about 3 years ago, and I'm a little bit more svelte now. I'm actually a lot less.
Less svelte. Oh, right, okay. Oh, more svelte or less svelte?
No, more. Oh, yeah.
You're more svelte.
I was terrible, Muriel.
You weren't that bad.
Yeah.
You really weren't.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's Kev's top tip. Make sure your belt is in your camera bag. I asked a photographer the other day. It was a wildlife photographer, and I asked him what the most important piece of kit that he carries around in his bag is. I don't ask many kit questions, so I thought, well, can I ask a kit question that's a little bit different? That isn't like what camera do you carry? And he thought about it for a second, and I said, well, what's the most important thing you carry around in your camera bag when you're photographing and all over the world and with your wildlife stuff? He said, luck. And that was it. That's the thing that he has to remember to pack.
That's actually a very, very good answer. I like that. Luck. Don't forget the luck.
Yeah, don't forget the luck. It's down there. He puts it between dividers, though, so it doesn't get damaged, Kev.
Oh, yeah, my luck would be battered.
Here's one from... Was that your question? It was, wasn't it? Here's one from John Watts in London. Dear gents, love the podcast, yada, yada, yada. In brackets, I actually do, thanks. Long-time listener, first-time asker. Well, you're very, very welcome. Following on from last week's question about Christmas presents, would you ever ask Santa for an Instax Mini or an SP3 Square instant printer to pair with your Fujifilm camera, or do you not like that medium at all? Or do you like instant medium but believe that it should come from an instant camera rather than a digital, thus not allowing you to reshoot bad pics? Or are you not really that bothered at all? I know Zach Arias loves them, but just interested in your take on them. I have an Instax 70, and I like that I'm forced to accept what I shoot. I can't just take a whole load of shots to get it right like I would usually. And I'm tempted to get a printer as well. John Watts. I like the Instax stuff, actually. And I know you used to use it, and I kind of followed you a little bit by taking a printer to a wedding and firing off some prints that you could just give them, 5 or 6 prints that they could have at the table while they were eating and could see some stuff from earlier during the day. The prints were never as good as a proper print that you would take out of a photo printer, but they were quite nice and kind of like peg-worthy. Yeah,
I mean, I like the Instax stuff. I don't have the square. I love the look of that square one, but I've that's quite a new one, I think, and so you're not going to buy things like that right now. But yeah, that does look very exciting. I quite like the look of that. I do have the Instax first one, I think, or the second one, can't remember. Anyway, and I did used to take it to weddings, like you said. In fact, you came one day to make a little documentary with me and saw me doing that. And then one day I did it at a wedding, and you're right, the prints are not, they're not great quality, and they're not meant to be. They're meant to look retro, they're a little bit glazed and stuff. And I handed it over, and the groom looked at it, and he went, hope the rest of them are better than that.
Oh no, did he?
Yeah, so I never did it again.
Right. Okay.
But the kids love it. Yeah, the kids, they haven't done it for a while. Often I'll buy them some print, some packets of print for Christmas. But I don't know. I feel like maybe they've moved on from that now. I feel like that might just be stuck in the bottom of the cupboard, and Albie will stick his face on the flight sim, and Rosa will go and feed a horse or something.
Well, yeah, I've got an Instax camera. In fact, I think I've got a couple of Instax cameras, and Thomas used to use them, but now he's got the X100F, which he won't give back to me. That's it. It has disappeared. What did he say? He taught me how to do something on it the other day that I didn't know it could do. I can't remember what it was.
He's probably managed to get Minecraft on the back or something.
Probably,
Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. Thank you very much, John, for your question. Kev, yours.
Okay, this is a question from Carl Farana. He says, "Hello, guys. Hope you're well. Quick question about SD card recovery. ... You know when there's the word recovery in SD and then ... there's a bad story coming up. I deleted some RAW files in error.
Oh, no.
So I wondered if there was a free in capitals software which would enable me to restore these files. Whatever program I have found on a Google search requires buying a software license, and don't really want to do that just for a small number of files. Thanks very much, Joe, in advance, Carlo." Oh, that's a nice way of ending. I like that. I'm going to end all my sentences from now. Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks very much, Joe, in advance, Carlo. That's good.
I used to have a friend that used to say thanks muchly.
Thanks muchly.
This is quite nice.
Okay,
it depends how much you need these pictures, really, doesn't it? I suppose.
I've recently been through this.
Oh, have you? Right.
So not for myself, but for a very good friend of mine who basically lost a lot of stuff on an SD drive. A pen drive rather than an SD card.
Kev, that sounds like it happened to you in that kind of like, I'm asking for a friend kind of way.
Asking for a friend, yeah. No, it definitely wasn't me, I promise you. However, I did end up spending a few days dealing with this. And I used to use the one that used to come with the SanDisk stuff. I think it's called Rescue Pro. And whenever you got an SD card from SanDisk, you would get a license code for it. So and that used to work fine. I went and downloaded it for him. I stuck it on his computer. And it didn't work. It just doesn't seem to work these days. And there's loads of stuff on the internet about it not being great anymore. So these files were really important, like properly important. So in the end, and I know that Carlos says free, he wants it to be free. I ended up finding a piece of software. Oh, that's my computer binging because I'm loading it up, so I can find out what it's called.
Okay.
And I did end up buying it because it was the only software that I could find that worked, and it's called iBsoft Data Recovery. Small I, BEE, as in bzz, soft data recovery. I think it was about $80. I really can't remember.
Right.
However, so this drive he sent me, I'd done all kinds of recovery on it, couldn't find a file. It was gone. And then I read a review about this piece of software, iBsoft Data Recovery. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a fling. So I downloaded the free version, which you can do, and it found literally all of the files. It took 8 hours to scan this drive, but it found the files.
Right.
And of course, with the free version, you can't recover them. You can only see them. So I paid for it, and we got all the files back. So 80 quid. Yes, it might only be a couple of files now, but you never know when you need it in the future. And I think if those images are important enough to warrant you needing them back now, then 80 quid is a wise investment. It seems to be really good. That I'd never even heard of it. iBsoft Data Recovery.
I suppose really with data recovery, the whole process of reason for data recovery is that there's some sort of value attached to it. So it's not really going to come with a free price ticket, is it?
Well, there are lots and lots of free, what they claim to be free on the internet. And as Carl has found out, none of them really work very well. And usually it takes you to websites where it's like how to recover your SD card. Click this link to download this free piece of software. Then you go to a website and it throws up a picture of a or something, and and then your entire internet gets deleted, and the kids move out and stuff.
You have a wild imagination. Okay, well,
Be careful with those searches.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful out there. Who used to say that? What program was that? You be careful out there?
Don't know. Wasn't Little House on the Prairie, though.
No, definitely not. One from Andreas Noah. Hi, Kev. Oh, this is for you, really, Kev. I attended last week's Zoom sesh with Martin Parr, in which he presented his newest book, From the Pope to a Flat White.
Ooh,
what a great title. I recognise your name among the attendees, so I assumed you were there too. Were you there? You were, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah, I must admit I felt really special to be one of 300 people together on a Zoom call with the real Martin Parr. I'm working in the Home Office for 9 months now in Germany. I spend several hours a day working in web conferences. And this was by far the most interesting one since all this began. My question, I really like the old pictures from rural Ireland in the 80s and the 90s in the book, taken at ballrooms and horse fairs, etc. But I must admit, I didn't really like the newer pictures taken in Dublin, especially at the startup companies. Do you think this is because they currently lack nostalgia and will in some decades become almost as amazing pictures as the older ones in the book? It's a bit like a wine gathering years and becoming vintage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point because that book was very nearly today's book review, From a Pope to a Flat White, because I've got that. And it is Martin Parr's latest book, but it will be next week's review book. Possibly. And yeah, it's so the presentation, by the way, was for people, members of the Martin Parr Foundation, and I think once they've kind of offered it to those people, then it's open to the public. And he essentially just came on and talked about this new book that he's published, and it was very interesting because I agree with him there in that the older stuff was the stuff that I was really keen on, because you don't see much of Martin Parr's old black and white stuff these days. You know, you can see it in the archives, but you don't. It's not the stuff he pushes out there these days. It's very, very, very different. Yeah. And I agree. I was looking at some of those pictures, and I was thinking, wow, these are great. You know, I really love those. And then, of course, so the whole idea is he goes from, I think it's 1979 when the Pope visited Ireland, and his time in Ireland around that. He lived in Ireland for a couple of years, and then all the way up to kind of modern time. And the book ends with a picture of a flat white, of course, as it sounds. And the end of it is, much more modern, digitalized color. Yeah, and I think perhaps he's right. I think it might be nostalgia because the pictures there then, and we've said this a million times, those pictures that people took in the 60s and 70s, at the time, people might have looked at them and thought, hang on, well, I see that every day. But now we look at them and we think, oh, yeah, do you remember? So, yeah, nostalgia. Benign picture of today is the nostalgic picture of tomorrow.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's a fact.
One day, I mean, we often talk, I know you do, often talk about mobile phones as being one of the distinguishing factors of a photograph taken at a particular... But one day, of course, we won't be using mobile phones. We'll just be talking into our arms. Microchips in our arms. Which of course we're all having through the injection. If you would believe the stuff that you read on Twitter.
Yeah, I'd say it's really funny. They're gonna solve all crimes like by the end. As soon as the vaccines are done, all crimes are going to be solved because they'll have got everybody's DNA.
Yeah, just ring Bill up. Bill, where's my wife? I'll just check on the database.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, no, we shouldn't be prudish about that.
Well, I don't believe we're being prudish. But shall we move on? I think we've got time for one more question from you, Kev. Then it's into this week's interview with Pete Reed.
Okay, so I'm going to randomly go up the list, and I'm going to stop here. Okay, and this is a question from Jonathan Clapton, and he says, question for both of you. What single piece of positive feedback has most motivated, encouraged, and spurred you on in your photographic careers? Oh. What was it? Who was it from? And when? Could be a client, mentor, other photographer, family, or anyone, in fact.
For me, probably two people. Keith Bernstein said something really nice when we were doing the FujiCast daily. I think he told me off, didn't he, in some respects? Told me to stop beating myself up because he'd been looking at the portfolio and picked out some stuff that he really liked. And that really, that coming from Keith, a seasoned photojournalist, and somebody who I respect.
Fellow red shoe wearer.
Fellow red shoe wearer for you, that's right. And then Giles Penfound, me old mucker Giles Penfound, who often pulls me up when I'm a bit self-derogatory and says, look, can I just point out this, and this picture? And he's very good like that. But, sometimes I think you need look no further than the test. And I said this to you earlier during last week, Kev, for reasons you may or may not want to go into. But, sometimes just, open the filing cabinet. In fact, I can do it for real, Kev. There's one here called testimonials. Take out the testimonials file, have a look in it, and read what people say. Because if you're a photographer, I'm betting that you've probably kept a little file with words of encouragement from people whose lives you have affected in some way. Look, and there's loads in here. But I've been doing it 15 years, so I'd hope there would be a few. But that's what you need to read. That's the stuff that will feed you at those moments where you think, I need a pep talk. I need a serious talking to myself.
Yeah, I guess that's very true. I've got, as I've been analysing this question, I've got a few little takes on this. Might take a little bit longer than we anticipated.
Stand by.
So first of all, the question he said was, what feedback has motivated you the most? So, that yes, the referrals and stuff, the testimonials and stuff. And honestly, I get, which makes me very proud, I get a lot of messages on Instagram and on YouTube Messenger and all that kind of stuff from people from all around the world and just saying, really nice things. For example, I've just picked one out that came through yesterday, and I'm not going to read it all, but it says, "Hello, Kevin. Decided I would write to you. I wanted to say I came across your day in a life photography black and white video 2 weeks ago. I'm an amateur photographer. Put the camera down in 2019 and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I was mainly taking fitness photos at my gym, blah, blah, blah. Your videos lit a fire in my ass."
Oh, my God, you've killed Kev. Who killed Kev?
It's not the Rona, I promise you. It's not a continuous cough. And then anyway, he goes on to say that, it's affected his whole life and his family, and he's now photographing and everything. So things like that, I think, are really nice. That's really nice. And I always reply to people on Instagram Messenger and everything. And then, that's the kind of motivation I get. It's not so much... I did, and we won't go into the details so much, but I did a portfolio. I had my pictures reviewed just recently by somebody, a paid for thing, and it was eye-opening to say the least, and it was motivational, but it's different in that when you have a professional photographer looking at your work, they're looking at it from a professional point of view, but when you have totally random strangers from this guy, I think it was from Ecuador. Is telling you that what you've done is really helping them, then that's and the same thing will be for you with the Photography Daily. There'll be people who it's having a direct impact on.
Yeah.
The thing that pushes me the most is something that my nana always used to say to me ever since I was since I can remember. Now she's long dead, obviously, but she always used to say to me, and she used to write it in my Christmas cards and everything like that, is keep pushing. That's all she would write. Keep pushing.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's something I always remember. Yeah, always remember that.
Oh, raise a glass to Nana. There we go.
Yeah, good old Nana. And that was the dedication in my little X100S book that I wrote as well. Was keep pushing.
Keep pushing.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You need to have motivation from multiple angles.
I've just thought of another one that I'd like to mention, actually, from Misan Harriman, who I interviewed on the Photography Daily over the last couple of weeks. He's the first black male photographer to have a front cover, the front cover picture in Vogue, British Vogue magazine. 104 years that magazine's been around. This is the first time that's happened. They have had has had a front cover from a female black photographer, but there was in this particular time where things have been happening over the last year that have been very pivotal in our history for Misan, and that was really, really important. And I was thrilled to have a chat with him, and we talked about that front cover. We talked about the work that he did on Black Lives Matter, etc. Then at the end, he threw a bit of a googly, which in cricket terms means something you're not quite expecting. And that he said, open up your mobile phone, look at your messages. And there was a message that he sent me back in 2019. So before any of this stuff had happened to him, and this sort of elevation to success had happened to him, he sent me a message that was essentially he'd watched a film that I'd made on YouTube about Mark Seymour, who'd been covering his father's death from dementia. It was a photo story, and it was quite a moving film, I think. And
yeah,
I mean, hats off to Mark. But he, you know, I may have made the film, but he made the film by the story, of course. And Miss Anne had sent me a message saying that had moved him greatly. And I hadn't seen the message. I hadn't seen the message properly. And so he brought that to my attention and said, look, you know, we all make a difference. You never know when you're going to make that difference. But that was a difference that was made to Miss Anne because that film particularly moved him as a photographer. So you're right. You never know when you're going to make a difference. And sometimes you'll make a difference and you won't even realise you're doing it. That's really, really important. Right. Should we have our interview? Should we this is I almost feel like I want to call these When Kevin Met as a series.
My interview technique is very different to yours.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I just roll in like a great big elephant, you know, banging around the room, and you're very mellifluous and considered. I'm like blah 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 blah. And when I edit my interviews, I have to like delete almost half of it of me waffling.
All right. Well, with that disclaimer, here, When Kevin Met Pete Reed.
He is a triple Olympic gold medal rower, Oxford Blue, MBE, OBE, 6'8". He's an all-round nice guy, and perhaps most importantly, in my opinion, an incredible photographer too. We've got Pete Reed. Pete, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. So good to speak to you, mate. Really, really good to be on. So thanks for the warm welcome and all that stuff. I'm smiling to myself but thank you so much. That's really nice.
See, we are a photography podcast and not a rowing podcast. However, you know, it would be churlish not to talk about that and talk about your journey. I think basically, if I summed your life up in one sentence, it would be something like this. In 2001, you joined the Navy, got on a boat, posted the fastest ergo set, and then within 6-7 years, you were winning a gold medal at the Beijing Olympics. Is that sum it up pretty accurately?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I joined the Navy in '99 actually. I started rowing in 2001, and then in 2005 we won the World Championships. Yeah, and then 2008 we won the Olympics. Amazing, so quick. And I promise you, mate, I just got lucky. I really got lucky. I was rowing with better people my whole career, and got into a boat with three monsters for that Olympic final in Beijing 2008. Yeah, it was quick.
Well, I think you can get lucky once, but I don't think you can get lucky 3 times. So, I think we'll take that with a pinch of salt. But of course, there must be some amazing memories there. How did you suddenly think one day, I'm going to take a camera with me and I'm going to document all this stuff? Where did the camera come from in your life?
I think my mother. Yeah, my mother's an artist and my dad's an engineer. And I think I've got the nice bits of both of them. You know, they're amazing people, and I just always thought that photography might be a thing, but never really took it seriously. And like so many people, I think I went through a departure lounge going on one of my first training camps with the senior team in 2006. I went into Dixon's and asked the sales assistant what I should buy, and he said, "Buy this Nikon D80. It'll be perfect as a introduction camera." And in modern Nikons, that's like a D3500. So the entry level DSLR with a kit zoom lens, and then off I went. And I just started taking photos of things, and I quite enjoyed it, and carried on taking photos of things and continuing to enjoy it. And then I sort of progressed. If we're talking about my photography history, I got into this really horrible position, which I try and I talk about a little bit publicly to anyone interested in photography who follows me, that I got into this really horrible, I needed to buy a better camera or a different lens or a better lens. I needed to have more gear to be a better photographer. And I read reviews online, I got suckered in, and I just thought, if only I had that lens, then I'd be as good as Kevin Mullins. And it wasn't true. It was never true. But I had stacks of gear. So I went to some full frame Nikon gear. I had Nikon D800 for a while, and then a D810. I had a D4 as well, this like monster paparazzi sports camera that wasn't fit for purpose at all. And I was taking it with me on training camps, and I felt guilty. I felt guilty every time that I got it out to take photos. I felt guilty because I should be either training or resting or eating. That's what I should be doing. and I couldn't justify having this. At one point, I had a Nikon D4 with a 24-70 f2.8 lens, and it was just massive. I couldn't justify having it in my kit bag. So I read a review and thought, I need this camera. And I bought my first Fujifilm camera, which was an X100S. And I had it with me all the time. It was with me all the time. And suddenly I just started taking more pictures and more bad pictures. But then you take more bad pictures and take more good ones. And I think that's probably a familiar kind of story for so many people who shoot with Fujifilm. That their way in is just they have a camera with them all the time and they fall in love with it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that X100S was the gateway for a lot of people to the mirrorless system. You know, you said that you needed to be either training, resting, or eating. Now, I'm very good at resting and eating. Training is a bit it's a bit more difficult. But when you were on your camps, how did the coaches and perhaps the other crew members think? You know, there you are, kind of camera in hand, ergo in one hand, camera in the other hand. I think tricky and mixed, and it made me really sort of try and read the situation every time I had my camera out. So especially with Jürgen Grobler, who was the chief coach, you know, that he had all of the strings. He was the selector and the coach, the chief coach, and the guy that you really needed to impress to make selection for any crew for World Cups or World Championships or Olympic Games. You know, I think I felt self-conscious, to be honest. If I had my camera with me and he was watching, then I felt guilty to the rest of the team as well. But I think the more people see you with the camera, and the more they see you training as well, and see you resting and critically performing, and also being not being in any way duplicitous with your photographs. If you can give them nice images and they look good, you know, then suddenly you're associated with your camera and it becomes normal. And I think as long as it doesn't get in the way of your performance and what you're doing, then it was very well received, particularly towards the end. And now, my goodness me, now I wish I didn't have those insecurities. I wish I'd taken more photos more often. And I wish I had a bigger library. Because at the time, it felt very normal what we were doing, but now I look back and think it wasn't normal. It was exciting, and just being in a changing room or a meeting room or in the boathouse behind the scenes, those are rare opportunities of access to something really special that went on in my life. And I would have given myself a kick and said, you know, take more pictures of Jürgen, and the two of us now are very, very close, and I wish I had more pictures of him. That's true for a lot of people, isn't it? I know Neil says the same thing. He used to work for the BBC, and he found himself in lots of different places on tours with bands and stuff, and just, you know, has the same kind of regrets. But I think looking through your Instagram, obviously I look at your Instagram a lot, but over the last few days in preparation for this, I've been digging right back into the depths of it, and it's very historical. There's a story to it, and you can almost see the journey. There's even some wedding photos there at the beginning, I think. The pictures you've taken at other people's weddings. So maybe there's a career there in the future. Of course, where you are is, you know, you have a privilege in as such that you're in this environment. Not many people are in those environments. But the pictures you take or have taken are incredible. I mean, really, really incredible. Great light, great composition, and then most importantly, a really interesting moment in all of those pictures. One of your pictures was on the cover or the inside cover of the 200 years history of the Leander Club. Is that right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's one of the very first pictures I took with my X100S, and I use that as an example sometimes. I'll share it with you because I had my X100S with me. I just drove down in the morning, saw this beautiful light, and I had my X100S with me. I didn't have my Nikon stuff. That was in a cabinet back at home. So I took that photo and then went to training, and then saw later on how good the image quality was from it. And I think that image was decision made. That was the emotional decision to sell all of my Nikon gear, which is hard to do because you sort of admit that you were wrong. And no one likes admitting they're wrong. But then that was the end of all of my 1.4G lenses and heavy cameras and heavy bits and pieces. And for a while, I just had that one camera, and I was so happy with it.
You're part of the history of the Leander Club. So for those that don't know, the Leander Club is, I suppose, the home of British rowing, I guess, probably one of the most famous places in terms of rowing in the world. And, you're part of that history because of your achievements, but also the fact that you're documenting it, and the photographic journey is part of that history as well. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin. I really am proud to be. I'm still a life member of Leander Club in Henley-on-Thames, and it's the oldest rowing club in the world. And that picture to go in the book, it's truly amazing to be a little part of their history, and to serve the club for my time. But it's a funny one with my own photography. You're very, very generous about my photography, and I promise I'm not fishing for compliments, but I just can't see it. I know I've taken a lot of images over the years, and an awful lot of bad ones, but I think I always look to other people for inspiration and just think mine aren't as good as those. And Fujifilm had a competition up recently. You'll like this, actually. Fujifilm had a competition to win 100V, and for the first time ever, I entered a photography competition. You just had to submit an image from an X100 series camera online and just pop it in. And so I logged in and sent an image in and had to choose one, but it meant that I had to go through a back catalogue of X100 series photos. I find it so hard to choose. I can't objectively analyse my own images. I nearly sent some to you, actually, to say, this is my top 10, I think. What do you reckon? And that picture of Leander was in there. In fact, it was in the top 4. It was a big leap of faith entering any sort of photography competition, because I think, like so many photographers out there, you've just got these inhibitions or this insecurity about being judged. And I probably got that from my whole life as a rower, performing constantly. But the being judged thing, you putting your work out there, it takes a real leap of faith. And I think I need to be a bit tougher about doing that. And because that makes you a better photographer.
You're quite right about the pressure. And, we all do take bad pictures. Of course we do. But I wonder if that's, that kind of attitude perhaps is something to do with the relentless training as an athlete, and the fact that you had to, you had to do everything that what you were told to do, and maybe that level of expectation is there in your photography too, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, we're dangerously close to psychoanalyzing me here, which would be a fun podcast in itself. I'm sure that's right. If you spend most of your young developmental adult life being judged and in a high performance environment, then it's bound to carry on to all sorts of bits and pieces afterwards. And I think I see that with my photography as well. But I think the point to the photography is I just enjoy having a camera with me. I really enjoy it. And I always think if a picture's worth taking, it's worth taking on an actual camera rather than just your phone. I'm trying to put my phone away and just have my camera with me all the time. And I enjoy it. It makes me sort of mindful and quite peaceful, and it makes me think of having a bit of a strategy or a bit of a project. I find it quite comforting.
14, 15 months ago, your life changed quite dramatically.
In early September 2019, I had a spinal stroke, and they're very, very rare. I don't think anyone needs to worry about it. So that they account for 1% of all strokes, and strokes are rare. But anyway, what it means is the blood flow that supplies your spinal cord with oxygen gets impinged, and so your spinal cord gets starved. So what I have now is an area of dead cells in my spinal cord. So messages that I send down to the lower part of my body just don't get there. So I can mercifully, I can still think clearly, and my arms and my shoulders and down to chest level is still strong. But from just the line below my chest, so all of my torso and my legs are now paralyzed. And I can't tell you what a shock that was. To go from standing in the middle of the podium just 3 years before at the Olympic Games to lying in a hospital bed, not being able to even sit up, even a little bit. I could lift my head and lift my shoulders, but I couldn't do a sit up. And it's terrifying. You go back to being needing care like a baby needs care over a period of about 10 minutes of pain and motion loss. And my partner Jeannie was with me, and I had amazing care from the NHS. This is before the pandemic saga, of course. The NHS are incredible. I went to a spinal unit in Salisbury from the hospital in Derriford and had some education, I suppose. The education part is just how to manage life now with paralysis. So you need to learn to take care of all of your bodily functions and systems, which completely change. And then the idea is that you're educated to be an independent, yet thriving, fulfilled member of society that can go away and contribute. I'm still in the military, so I get access to military rehab, and that's where we are right now, 2020. Through all of this pandemic and all this uncertainty and this horrible, horrible year for all of us, I've been grinding away with the team here to try and recover any functional movement that I can get back. And it's a really exciting journey because there is progress. There's signs of functional gain. It's really slow and steady, but I've gone from zero movement below my chest to some really exciting. Can I even plug my own social media?
Of course.
I don't feel like I need followers, but if you're interested in how things are coming back, rather than me waffle on about it, I document the journey and what we're doing, how we're training, and what functional movements are coming back. And we're just starting to get to the stage where I can do an assisted stand. So my poor little weak legs, they're not where they used to be, but there's more to life than strong legs. And I think we're handling ourselves very well.
Do you think the photography, the elements of shooting are helping you on this journey? Did you pick a camera up almost straight away once you were able to after the incident?
Yeah, almost straight away. So I was desperate to get a good camera in my hands, and actually, so Jeannie, my partner, and I, we had so much on. I was acutely ill in the first month or so, and so I wasn't able to have a camera. But when she actually brought my X70 from home. And it was like having an old friend with me. It was really nice. So I started taking pictures of, what do you take pictures of? Your feet, if you're just lying there, or the jug next to you. But I sort of realized that those are the kind of interesting things that I'd like to look back on. And I do have a back catalogue of photographs from my hospital bed of just the things that I could see, the horrible view out of the window and the sink in the corner. And I do. I wish I had more from my Fujifilm cameras. Some of them in the early days were just from my phone, and we were busy documenting everything that was happening. But it was reassuring to have my camera back. And to answer your question, it does help me tell the story because I haven't grown up doing pieces to camera. I feel quite awkward when I'm looking into a camera and doing a video and speaking to people. I'd much rather have a photograph that I can talk through what I was thinking, feeling, seeing at the time, and what we're doing about these awkward situations. And I've tried to be. I think some things aren't for social media. I'm not going to give my whole life away, but I have been as honest as I feel. So not as honest as open to open the world of a spinal cord injury to the public, because It's not because it's interesting. I really want the public to know what it's like to have a spinal cord injury, because so many people do, and there's so little understanding of it. And I don't blame the public, because I had no idea what it was all about when I was able-bodied either. But it's fascinating, and it's hard. It's crippling to some people. So part of the content, I really wish to educate people on what it means and the trouble that you go through in life and accessibility needs. The other key thing is showing people who have just had a spinal cord injury that there is hope and there's a life afterwards. It's a different life to your one before, but it doesn't mean it can't be better. And it's worth fighting for and working for, whatever your injury level, and never give up. Because, I mean, no one will blame you if you give up, apart from yourself, quite frankly. And that's what I want to get out there. It's worth the work.
I remember when I came to visit you, when I don't know, a few weeks afterwards, and you introduced me to a gentleman I think you called him Little Keith. He was an artist.
Yeah.
And I was scrolling through your Instagram the day before yesterday, I think, and I went right the way back to that time. And there's a picture of Little Keith with his pens and his pencils and everything. And I just thought, well, this is absolutely incredible. You know, everything that's going on in your world at the time, you're still making. And this is a beautiful picture of Keith. This isn't a snapshot. This is a well thought out, well composed portrait. And that must have helped, I suppose, in terms of giving you some kind of objectivity in terms of something to do, as well as get better and kind of recover.
You're absolutely right, and thanks for the shout out for Little Keith. I mean, so Jeannie and I still talk about him, as we do with so many patients and staff that we come across over the last year. We've learned an awful lot, and so taking photographs, it did give me a sense of purpose and a bit of maybe an identity, something to latch onto. And so having a purpose, and I think creating something or even doing something, quite frankly, at that stage, when you're that injured and that ill, just doing something is really good practice, because when you do stuff, you do more stuff and you do more stuff. And then all of a sudden you get into this lifestyle, this habit, this routine of doing and maybe from time to time achieving and producing and creating. And the alternative to not picking up a camera and not having an identity and not doing stuff is it's too grim to bear, really. You know, if you get into the habit of not trying and not doing, then you go down a spiral quickly. And actually, I've got a lot to thank my camera for.
It can't just live on Instagram forever, Pete. There must be exhibitions, books, all kinds of stuff in the long-term goal for this. It's such a powerful and beautiful story from the beginning to where you are now.
I want to come and see you, actually. I'm so lucky. I'm close to Fujifilm, that family, and I'm close with Paul Sanders, and close with you and Jonas, and I need your help, I think, because I would love to put some of this in a book or an exhibition, but I think it's a failing of mine that I just feel a bit overwhelmed that there's so much going on in life. I'm still in the military and I'm really excited about that direction. But it can't be beyond me to also put some images in a book and just make some notes about what I was thinking and feeling at the time. But the hard thing for me would be choosing the images, because at the start of this conversation, I explained why I find it difficult to choose images. There's a whole load there. They're disorganized, and I feel like I need to get a bit of intimacy back with my library. So
finally, I have 3 relatively quick-fire questions that I always ask people. If you were 18 years old again, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say keep going through everything, through all the ups and downs. There'll be many, many more downs than there will be ups, but keep going, no matter what.
Who is, or perhaps what is the greatest inspiration in your life?
I think about my partner Jeannie all the time, and her strengths are my failings, and she really is inspirational. The people that know her just adore her. She's the shining lights of so many people's lives, but she's not a public figure. Yeah, I think I'm inspired by her all the time, every time, and she's my motivation. You know, that the reason I want to do well and get through this episode in a wheelchair. Whatever this situation is now, I want to make life good for the both of us, for her. She's brilliant.
Yeah, she is, and she's got a 6 feet wide smile. She is very, very lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, if you had one camera for the rest of your life, what would it be? It could be a camera you don't own.
Luckily, I do own it. And it's an X100V. It's in front of me. No, can I change it? I don't care for all the tech and all the amazing stuff that's in the X100V. I'd still choose the X70. I still would. So sorry, X100V, and then the X70. It's just got everything right. It's got everything right.
Yeah,
that's my camera.
Thanks to Pete Reed this week for chatting with chatting with the governor, Kev. There we go. And next week, actually, there's your Parker Pfister interview, which has been sat there for ages.
Yeah, this was. There's a reason why we don't mention the virus or anything in that interview, because this was well before the virus.
Yeah. But there was a virus on the actual recording, so we had to do some clever bits. So, but it's coming out to a podcast near you next week, actually, on the FujiCast. Right, back to your questions. We should really say thank you to our patrons, shouldn't we? Thank you very much for your support. We will wear it always, as Morecambe and Wise used to say. And so there's a bump to the front one here from Kathy Myers out of one of our patrons. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Neil. In response to your appeal for more questions, no need to bump to the front, though. Oh, but we have, Kathy. My other favourite show is the Great British Bake Off. Oh, we love that, and I'm not so keen, but I like the programme. But I don't know about you, Kev. But Great British Bake Off, does that just make you want to go to the cupboard and eat stuff?
No, it makes me want to turn the telly off. I hate it.
Really?
Yeah,
hate
all that stuff. Yeah,
oh, Kev.
I like the cooking one, the proper cooking, not just cakes. You know, the chef one.
Kev, cooking cakes is proper cooking. You know.
No, it's not. It's baking. Cooking is proper cooking. I like that one. The one with what's it called? The MasterChef. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
That makes me hungry.
Okay, all right. Oh well, we watch Bake Off, and the kids love it. I know there's been a photography equivalent, but sadly it was on Sky, so I didn't see it. Anyway, my question is, if you were being Paul and Prue. So just so you understand, Kev, Paul and Prue are the main bakers and knowledge central on that show, and they're the ones that mark all the cakes as they come out. You see,
I thought it was that really old lady, the one who's really beautiful looking.
I thought it was that really old lady, the one that's really beautiful looking.
Well, she's old and beautiful.
Trying to rescue her. Do you mean Mary Berry?
Yeah, that's her. She's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yes. No, she left when it went from the BBC. Do you remember that there was Mel and Sue that were the presenters of it, and it was Paul?
Isn't it Paul California or something?
Paul Hollywood, Paul California, as you call him. And so Paul and Mary were the judges, and he had Mel and Sue that were the presenters. And then when it went to Channel 4, some people got, including obviously Mel and Sue and Mary, were very, you can't take it away from the BBC, it's dreadful about it. And but Paul California, as you're calling him, he stayed on, and so he was joined by Prue, and they now have two new presenters. Anyway, you haven't watched it for a long time, but it's about baking, and Paul and Prue are the bakers, are the judges and bakers actually. Anyway, my question is, if you were being Paul and Prue, we'll get there, and setting a photography challenge to 13 budding photographers, what would it be, and how many hours would they have on the clock? Also, who would you choose as your co-hosts to calm all the photographers down when the pressure's getting to them? Thanks very much for the FujiCast from Kathy.
Ooh, that is a good question.
It's a very good question. And we got there in the end, Kathy, even though Kev doesn't like the baking. aspect of it.
Pretend cooking.
We'd call this. We couldn't call it Bake Off. We'd have to call it Shoot Off. Oh no, we can't call it that.
No, that's bad. Yeah, that's bad.
That would be late night. You can't go. What would you call it, Bouquet? Me too. That's a very good idea. That's what I would call it.
This is because on my workshops, on my street photography workshops, if I can remember that far back, we do exercises all the time. But yeah. I'm trying to think what would be suitable for a baking show.
A photography show, Kev. It's not the baking. It's a photography challenge. A photography challenge. I'd go a bit straight-laced. I'm not sure if this is what Kathy wants to hear, but I think because it would be a test of general confidence. If it's a street one, so let's call it a street one. Get out there, go make yourself a portrait with the most interesting person you can find who tells you a story that you weren't expecting. You've got a whole day, away you go. 6 hours. I'll give them 6 hours to bring back the most incredible story of life from one person. Okay, so you might have to photograph a few before you find that gem. Or you might get that gem straight away, in which come straight back and drink coffee for the rest of the day. But that would be a really good challenge, I think. One story, a portrait where you can look into their eyes and really experience this person.
Yeah, that is good. I would do something, if I'm thinking of some of the exercises I set people, I would allocate them a shop window, and they have to stand outside. They're not allowed to move. They have to face the shop window, so they're not in the shop window. They're facing the shop window from the street level, and they have to create a series of images that tell the story of that scene. In a couple of hours. Yeah, so they're not allowed to move. The background is going to be the same in every picture, but they need to tell a story. Yeah,
well, that's a nice idea.
That's what I would do, probably.
I like that. There we go. We got a 2-day course there, Kev.
We have.
When are we going to do it?
When we're allowed.
Yeah, when we're allowed. Let's do that course.
And what was the other part of the question?
Well, who would we have as the presenters to look after everybody? I mean, we could do crowd control and have our very good admins, Steve Vaughan and Peter Kasbergen, because they'd look out. Steve could tell them all about how to do a Zoom call, and Peter could tell them all about Formula One racing. There we go. That would entertain them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The place would be very tidy.
Yes, it would be. I don't know, who would we have as the co-presenters there, as the co-hosts? Gemma would be good. Gemma and Sam, they could look after the whole thing.
Yeah, and actually Gemma likes Bake Off.
Does she? Oh, there we go. And Sam does as well. So there you go.
Sorted.
Yeah. So your question, Kev?
My question is randomly looking up and down. This is from Alex Fredriksson, good old Alex in Austria. She says, "Hi guys, thanks so much for the podcast, which really is the gift that keeps on giving, with a mix of content, inspiration, yada 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 yada. After the hundreds of weddings you've both shot, do you still occasionally mess up? Do you ever look at an image and think, I should have done better than that?" I'm talking about things that were in your control. If that happens, but you love the photo, even though it's not of the same standard as the rest of the images you're presenting to your clients, do you or would you still give it to them?
Ooh.
Do you still mess up?
Of course, yeah. Let's be honest, even the greats would go out and spend a whole day and come back and think, there's nothing there, really, nothing. I messed up there because I missed that. I could have got that, but I was chimping. That one, I was the wrong side of the road. I could see that. I'm sure people have that all the time, even the great street photographers.
I think, she's definitely kind of implying more about weddings, but yeah, we've all kind of looked at images and thought, missed the focus or didn't quite frame it right, or whatever. So yeah, of course, I think you're definitely going to do that. That's definitely going to be a thing.
For me, it's all timing. That if there's a mess up, it's going to be a timing thing. It's going to be I knew that was happening. Why am I here? And why am I not over there? That for me, they're the mistakes.
It's hard to quantify the ones that are within your control and outside of your control, though, because often the timing ones are, somebody's walked into the frame or something, and that's messed it up, and that's out of your control then to a certain extent, because you could, of course, move But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's the day. It's a bad day when you think that everything's good, everything's great.
I'll tell you what, it took me a while to get used to the aperture ring being on the camera. I shoot in aperture priority mode, so it's if you've moved the aperture around and you haven't spotted that you've done it by seeing the readout in the screen in front of you, then you shoot a whole load of low light stuff at f5.6 or 8 or 11, even, and you think, oh, I needed to be at a shallower depth of field, and for some reason you haven't been there. That took me. I used to
make far more mistakes when I shot DSLRs back in the day.
Did you?
But
okay.
And that was because I used to shoot manually, and you'd set your ISO for inside the church, you'd come out, and because you couldn't see the exposure, you'd end up with really grainy stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
Not necessarily. Yeah.
I think for me that's a timing question. That's a kind of you think, oh, and I still do it, and I try not to, but we all do. Do we all do it? I don't know. Be honest with yourself. That moment where you think, oh, I think I've nailed that. You look down your chin pit and you think, and what's actually happening in front of you at that moment is the bit you needed, not the bit that was the bit before it. Never, never, ever, ever, never, never, ever chimp when something is going on in front of you. Especially when you've got a mirrorless camera where you can see that your exposure's correct. There's no reason to chimp.
No, absolutely. Totally agree.
Right, we ready should we go for a book?
Okay, today's book is a new addition, I think, to my collection, which is and it's important for me to say this, the first edition of Josef Koudelka's Gypsies.
Hang on a minute, that means it's worth money.
It is worth a little bit of money. Now, I'm also going to tell you where I got this book, because I know that some of you are interested in book collecting, as I am, and I often talk about ABE books, which is a great place to get some limited edition, first editions, all that kind of stuff. But also, if you're in the United Kingdom, one of the best places I've found is the Oxfam online shop. Right. Beautiful place, lots and lots of stuff on there. They research the books well, so you're not going to get a bargain bucket. You're still going to be paying the similar kind of price to ABE books. But what you will be doing is donating all of that money to Oxfam. So this is where this one came from. Oxfam, Koudelka Gypsies, and I do already have I think it's a 2011 edition of this, but the first edition is the special one. This, again, it's hard because you're not here, but it's it's a standard size hardback book, all black and white, very, very, it's perfect for my style. I love it. Very high contrast, black and white images. And we talked at the top of the show about whether Gypsies is the right word to use these days. And I think probably is, to be honest with you. This is the photo essay of the lives of Roma communities across Europe. Yeah. And I think they still kind of take that moniker. And if you look on the Magnum website, they have a whole page dedicated to this series of images, and it's described as one of the seminal photo essays of 20th century. Magnum photographer Josef Koudelka's Gypsies offers an unparalleled insight into the everyday lives of Europe's Roma communities. Carrying only his equipment, a rucksack and a sleeping bag, Koudelka moved freely between different villages and encampments during the 60s and early 70s, sleeping outside and spending his days immersed in recording the individuals he encountered. And it is a phenomenal book. It's another one of those books that when you look at the images, we talked about it last week, if you're into pin sharp images and things that are digitally, spot on, you probably won't appreciate this. Yeah. But if you're into images that tell a story, that are well composed, that are actually very, very poignant, and to a point where when you look at some of the pictures, you actually just think, oh my word, there's parts of this that I've just never seen before. So I'm looking at a picture. It's, again, a book doesn't have page numbers, but there's an image of a guy with just seemingly two people in this picture. There's a guy just stood staring at the camera with a tie on. And next to him is another guy who's playing a fiddle. And they're obviously in a fairly basic room. And then right down in the corner, almost in the vignette of the shot, is a little child in a pair of shorts, looking very mournfully at the camera as well. And he's very dark and hardly seen. Now, from a technical point of view, remember this would have been 1969, 1970. It's incredibly difficult picture to have taken. Light is harsh. There's very big shadows everywhere. But the story is brilliant. You know, it's there, and then you kind of move into some of the other images. The next image on the next page is the Roma gypsies are having a party by the looks of it, and so you have a little boy on a saxophone. You've got several pictures of the Virgin Mary and Joseph and Jesus on the wall. You have another guy playing the accordion, and then in the mirror you can see the people dancing who are obviously behind Josef Koudelka who's taking these pictures.
Clever.
So again, frames within frames. It's beautiful, really beautiful. You know, you look at these pictures and you can't help but think, what are they doing now? Where are they now? Where did their lives go? And then, you know, some of the more kind of classical portraits, straight to camera of the people, and you get a real sense of environment, a real sense of their homes and their lives. And also, I think, ultimately, you get a real sense of how Josef Koudelka was accepted into their community for this period of time. And, you know, I think was probably quite rare in those days.
Well, Shutterbug called him a gypsy with a camera, and it's glorious to think that you could, you know, pack up your camera, just you, move around at will and go and make stories about people. I mean, that is probably for you, that would be the ultimate freedom to go and make your street pictures, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the final two pictures in the book are powerful beyond belief. So it's 1967. These pages are titled, and it's somebody has died.
Is this the coffin pit?
So there's two frames for this. There's the one with the mother presumably holding the head of the girl in the coffin. Yeah. She's got a coin on her eye, which presumably is some kind of tradition. I'm not sure. And then there's the other one, the wide shot which is the one you're probably referring to. Of the coffin and everybody looking at the
families,
coffin.
Yeah. All gathered around. There must be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's about 20 people perhaps in the room.
And it's insane. I mean, the story in that picture is insane, but the technique to take that picture, that window is shining straight on him. Yes. The talent of the photographer technically is amazing, but the storytelling is superb. You know, absolutely superb. And I like what it says on the inside cover of the book. It says, Josef Koudelka, the rage to see. I like that, the rage to see. He's got rage to see. A C as in S-E-E, not S-E-A.
Yeah.
So, Koudelka's Gypsies is the book of the week. We shall link to it, of course. It is available. The reprints are available freely, not freely, but, you know, available easily on Amazon and various other places. But the first edition is more challenging to get.
Yeah. But you've got first edition, Kev.
First edition.
Lock that one away, Kev.
Don't tell Gemma.
No. Yeah, that's true.
What's that? She said when it turned up in the post. Oh, it's somebody's just sent me something for Christmas.
Sent
one of the listeners. Yeah, one of the listeners sent me a gift.
That's a very good idea. Oh, when boxes turn up now, yeah. Well, as long as they don't have Amazon written on the side, because they're not going to. I don't think Sam will be fooled on that one.
But no, seriously, the Oxfam stuff. If you're in the UK, Oxfam, you can filter it by collectibles and photo books as well. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Do not blame me if you end up bankrupt. All right, that's all I'm saying. Or divorced, or living in a box under a bridge. That's entirely up to you.
Living in a box, living in a cardboard box. Do you remember who did that song? Oh, that was Living in a Box, wasn't it?
It was Living in a Box, wasn't it? Yeah.
Living in a Box.
Yeah.
A couple here actually. There's a one from Mike Miller. It's not so much a question, but he said, "Hi Kev, Neil. I hope you're both well, staying positive and testing negative." That's a good phrase. I'm sure that somebody's already pointed this out. John Boy was a character who was on the TV show The Waltons. Oh, do you remember we talked about it last week? I think I said Little House on the Prairie.
You got it all wrong. You didn't even say the right thing.
I can't remember what I said. Did I say?
You said good night.
Good night, John Boy. Oh, Billy Bob.
Good night, Bill Bob or something, and it's John Boy.
Yeah, it's John Boy. Little House on the... I've got to be careful about the T's now. Little House on the Prairie, sort of centred around the young girl, Laura. Michael Landon, who also played Little Joe on Bonanza, was the father in this series. Have a great week. Just thought I'd help out. Mike. Well, he did. Thank you, Mike. And the reason why I was being very, very careful about pronunciation was Paul Sillard Well, I assume it's Szilard. It's Szilard. There's a silent letter in there, Kev. What do you think about silent letters?
Pointless. What is the point of silent letters? Waste of space.
But I don't know, because I don't know.
All those trees that could have been saved. Honestly, all those trees that could have been saved. People not typing in silent letters.
I don't know where Paul's from, because it could be Szilard, of course. I don't know. But there would still be a silent letter there then, wouldn't there? Anyway, I would have put... So he had a stitch-in question. I would have put stitching, but I noticed that you guys don't like saying some letters, the letter G at the end of words in particular. How very dare you, Paul?
Are we getting our asses whooped here?
We are. Now, I suppose I should also put yada, yada, yada to get this read out. I'm a Fuji user since 2012, having started with the X100. Now I have an XT4, 3, 20, and X Pro 2 and 21 lenses. 21 lenses?
Wow, that's all of them, I think.
I reckon he's got your 35mm.
Did he say it Fuji shooter?
Well, yes, it's Fuji film. Sorry, we should correct you there.
Yes, exactly. It's Fuji film. Fuji film, not Fuji.
Oh, actually, I should have... this is a classic didn't read the question beforehand moment. He's told me where he lives. He lives in Sydney, in Australia. And has got some links here to some of his photos. We'll try and remember to put that link up. Anyway, I've started to get interested in 360 photography. My question is, have either of you experimented with image stitching as opposed to stitching, as opposed to using the camera's built-in pano mode? If so, what lenses would you recommend? And what software? There's PTG UI, which I've used in the past, and Hugging. Shouldn't that be Hugging? Seems popular. The infamous Adobe subscription programs can also do this. I was going to tip you a cappuccino, but as I have an espresso machine at home, it only cost me $1, which would cost more in fees to send than it's worth. Love from Paul. They're my favourite kind of emails, really, when you're a little bit cheeky.
Yeah.
Have you done some 360?
360. No, I mean I've done some 180 degree stuff and everything, and I just use Lightroom. Lightroom you can stitch Lightroom. I don't think you can do 360s, but you can do panoramas. Not really something I've done. Yeah. So I know that Michael Schilling does it.
Yeah, Schilling does it. Yeah.
He's got a special thing that comes out of the top of his head and takes pictures. I can't remember.
Every time
we will link to his Instagram with all of his 360 pictures. But
I don't think he has to stitch it in PT GUI, I think it's called, or Huggin, or Hugin, or however you pronounce that. But I don't think he has to do that because his camera stitches it all together for him. Whenever we go out with Schilling, he always stands in the middle. It makes us do a 360 picture, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We always have to do one where the
camera. His antenna comes out the top of his head.
Yeah. I did do some about 2 years ago. I don't know. It was tremendously complicated, and I vowed never to do it again. I bought all the kit, including a special tripod head and everything, and then sold it all, I'm afraid. It was like, I don't know, people do this for a living? I lost my sanity doing it.
Some of them are great, I have to say. I do like them, but yeah, I'm not... by the time the camera's gone around and the exposure's changed, I'd have just kicked my camera into the sea.
Okay. I think that answers your question, Paul, and we will start to use the letter G more often. Right, your question, Kev, and I think that'll be the last one for this showing today.
Last one, right, I'm going to pick one from Keith Martin.
Oh, Keith Martin.
That's Keith Martin. I see that Angelina Jolie is making a biopic about Don McCullin.
Right.
Who would you like to direct FujiCast, the movie?
Oh, goodness. FujiCast, the movie.
Who would direct it?
FujiCast, the movie. Spike Lee.
Spike Lee.
I don't know. I want attitude in there. I suppose, dead or alive, I suppose it'd be really interesting to have Stanley Kubrick, wouldn't it? Eh?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Hey, Stanley Kubrick. Yes. Yeah. It would all be a bit strange in places, but I think that would be quite nice.
There could be a monolith between us. And do you see that monolith that turned up in America recently? You read about that? I
saw something about that, and then I didn't click on the story. What was that?
It was this great big metal monolith, just like the one out of 2001, appeared in some desert. It might have been Oregon or somewhere like that. And It just appeared.
Right.
And then there was this whole thing about, what is it? Is it aliens? Is it some kind of, nuclear test, whatever? And then it disappeared, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's God! The aliens have come back. It's gone. It's definitely aliens, definitely aliens." And then yesterday, this fella on Instagram said, "No, I was there. These 3 blokes just turned up, knocked it down, put it in the back of a lorry, and drove off with it."
Took it off. What do you mean they nicked the monolith?
They nicked it. Yeah.
Oh, well, there we
He
go.
said, and they only had 2 eyes each.
It's a bit like crop circles. Do you believe in crop circles?
Well, they exist. I've seen them.
Yeah, but do you believe that they're made by aliens, or do you think, Farmer Giles turns up and does his business and then lets everybody?
I think it's a thing that people have been doing. However, I do believe that there probably is other life out there.
Do you believe in aliens? Do you?
Well, if you have to kind of call them aliens, then yes. If they're not from this planet, I believe there's life outside this planet.
Yeah. Well, it's a big place, the universe.
Yeah,
Apparently.
I'm only going as far as Merthyr Tydfil here, mind.
Oh, I tell you what, there's plenty of aliens in Merthyr Tydfil. You tell me that all the time. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you very much. If you can and you think it's relevant, we'd love you to leave a review. You can share the episode as well on Twitter or on Facebook. You'd be a star if you will. Let us know where you're sharing to, because we like to give those platforms a shout out as well. See you in the Facebook group for any questions that you have. Now, remember, the most important rule here, Kev, is you can only leave the Facebook question in that there post that you created.
Yes. Really, really important.
And don't be doing nothing else with it. Send your questions, your stories, and your work, and anything of interest you think listeners will enjoy or learn from via the show's website address or the email address. Click at FujiCast.co.uk. Thank you to those that have been supporting the show by joining the Patreon scheme. If you can do it, fantastic. For those who think it's appropriate, of course, it's not just for us, but for your pocket too. It's got to be appropriate, but the donations will help the show as an ongoing project. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. Thank you to Pete Reed, and that's it for another week. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Kev. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.